you know, and be more efficient and plan up front of how you're going to tackle it.
Okay. So you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next step? Do you just sort of distribute that to all of the students in the class?
Yeah, I would distribute the case. I would review the construct of it, where the idea is coming from, what the focus is, or give them sort of an involvement in it. Paint a scenario for them, get them interested in the situation. Mm-hmm. And then they take it from there. And then now in the financial engineering cases, we have an interesting dynamic in the classroom where I limit it to, right now we're working to limit it to 40 students. I form 10 teams of 4. Okay. And I'm usually in the classroom where they could swivel their desks across from each other, and, and I request that they bring laptops in. And I find that the business students, about 95% of them possess a laptop now. Good. Which is great because, you know, we don't have, for some of the sizes of the classrooms, it would be ideal to work in the classroom setting where, like a sync site, but there's a heavy demand on campus for those classrooms. So, and it's also an advantage for students to work on a machine that they're familiar with, their own laptop. So it's very comfortable with the student.
What do you do for the 5% that don't have a laptop?
Well, I do encourage them, if they have the money, to buy a netbook or a cheaper solution, right. Or otherwise they work along with somebody else who has a laptop in class. There's other non-PC oriented work that they can be doing to help the team along. Okay. So
essentially this group of 4, if there's 3 laptops in the group,
right, that's plenty, effective. Because a lot of times 2 people need to work together. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not always that everyone, because they're not really working as individuals, they're working as a team anyway. Right. So even if a team has 4 laptops, they might be huddled around 1 or 2 of them. Mm-hmm. You know, but it's nice to have if they do have it, because sometimes, in some cases, I do advise them to work individually at first, and then come together to share what they have and see who has the best format or the best ideas, and then take the best elements of each of them and put them together to submit one really well thought, refined case back to me. And I told them everything has to be professional. You know, I trained them to be what I liked as employees when I would manage employees, because I wanted, when I got a spreadsheet for an employee, it had to look publishable, professional. Mm-hmm. Print ranges were set, the data was checked, and I wanted to feel confident that I could move through to my boss with it with a minimal amount of
editing and change.
Right, you know, make it my follow through much quicker. And we focus on summing up the details of the cases in an executive summary, where the main points and the main questions are answered on one tightly controlled page, where we have a good utilization of space. So when you open up the case, that first page has the majority of the answers and a memo describing, you know, what they've discovered and, you know, recommendations from me. I said, pretend I'm your boss, not your teacher. Mm-hmm. So the class is more of a facilitator, where, you know, I'm giving them work and then, you know, giving them feedback as if I was an employer.
How are you assigning the students to the different groups?
I've tried various methods to that. Sometimes I will randomly assign them to each other, giving the premise that in the workforce you can't work with your friends. You might as well start now getting used to working with strangers and developing a relationship with them and figuring out the best skills to work as a team. Some classes I've let them choose their own teams. Now the advantage of that is there's less pushback on me when there's less conflicts in the team. I find that they choose their own teams of people they're familiar with. But there is a drawback of, you know, they don't meet as many new people and they don't get the experiences of working in a team with people they're not familiar with.
And do you use roles within the team?
Yeah, I do assign a leader to the team. I've been experimenting with assigning a leader or letting them pick a leader. Okay. And I found that doing sort of a combination where if they have trouble picking a leader, I'll assign it, or if they want to naturally, one person wants to volunteer. And I don't tell them there's an incentive, but once a leader steps forward and they take control of the team, there are additional responsibilities for submitting the work and organizing it, but then there's also additional opportunities for them to get experience in leading a team, and, you know, so there's the hidden value of taking control, being in charge.
Are students aware that taking leadership roles in groups, they can actually present that to an employer as leadership experience?
We have, for the past couple of years, been focusing on having students prepare for internships, and one of the ways we do that is encouraging them to build a portfolio. Mm-hmm. And I know you've been doing some work on that as well. And it's an excellent concept because now people are sort of trained a little bit more these days to do research. With Google, even if it's simple as Google, you know, they want to know the facts.
Yeah.
So I always encourage a student that a RAM drive is a wonderful thing. I said, you know, if you can get a presentation on there, we're starting to ramp up and try to do more tape presentations for students to post them on a common site where they could share them with potential employers. Because presentation skills can display a lot of confidence, a lot of poise. I mean, something a company wants to hire someone who could be a good representative.
Sure.
And the way you carry yourself and the way you're able to speak and your confidence in front of other people shows a lot. You know, each of our main courses has a project, a rather lengthy and entailed project, and we like them to put them together almost like an art student would have a portfolio and carry their big, you know, bound case with them with all their artwork and experiences. We want our students to carry a RAM drive with all their major projects.
So is the leader the only role that you assign your groups?
Yeah, that's the leaders, and the other three would be working.
And does that role rotate at all, or do you tend to leave?
It does. Generally, we'll have quarters in the class, and every 4 or so cases, I do require that they change the role, so the leader can become somebody else. Now, in some teams, the leader can take the role multiple times. You know, and I don't prefer that, but I'm not going to force someone into that role if it's not best for the team. And it's
So tell me a little bit more about how you get the teams working in the classroom. Are they presenting? Are they competing against one another? Or what's happening? What's that dynamic?
As far as the grades are determined, I do kind of look at them in aggregate of what they give back to me. And so they are somewhat in competition against each other. They do present, they will present.
Are they aware that they're competing against each
Yeah,
other?
I do make that
Because the
clear.
business world, they will be.
Yeah, and I tell them, like, on the job, if this was a job and you were my 40 employees, you'd be competing with each other for promotions, for raises.
Right.
I mean, you always have to make sure that your identity and your proficiency is known. And one way to do that is, you know, clearly one way to do that is put together have your work shine and have your work speak for you, whether it's an individual or a team-based assignment. And then we rotate presentations. So every class, 2 groups will present, and they'll be graded on their presentation. Feedback will be provided by me and the class.
Okay. Now, I understand you also use some simulation software. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, for the past 5 years, I've been working with simulation software, and I started with capstone simulations, and that grew to be a little bit too complex of a solution for students. I was wasting too much time in training students how to use the software. So I found there's multiple packages out there. Many companies have provided. I found a small company that makes the Zoom simulation. I think it's Jupiter Interactive. And it's a very intuitive almost a Google-based type of simulation where it's very intuitive to work with. So I can spend very little time instructing them how the workings.
What's being simulated? Is this the operations of a company? Or
All the major decisions that would be utilized in running an automobile company.
Okay.
So it starts off with the first page. They play it in teams, and each of them do take a role. We have a president, a vice president of sales, production, marketing, and finance.
Okay.
And they have to come up with a mission statement, and that's the first page of the simulation. The second page is a sales tool. So they go in and they have to design the cars, and they have to put the features on: miles per gallon, safety features, luxury features, months of reliability, warranty, set the price for the car, set the sales forecast for the car, and they have to do that for, I think, economy, sedans, luxury, and trucks.